Play. There we go. Share. Screen. Okay. All right, here we
It looks like
go.
one of our schools.
I should probably ask Bianca if she can join me so she could be letting people in. All right, now we'll just go. We'll just go. Sorry. I believe I'm recording it.
Yeah, co-host, I can help.
Did anybody get like a message saying it's being recorded? Okay, thanks, Mary. Welcome to Renewal Application Training number 2. Everybody.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you.
You know what, Cheryl? I'm gonna make you co-host and then you can be letting people in.
Sure.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start off with your questions. I even have a pad of paper and a pen in case I can't answer anything. Then we're going to talk about mission specific goals, both for your application and for the future. Presenting and verifying data. A lot of you were asking me for Part C examples, so I got some of those. Talk about the application submission, renewal site visits, and what those are like, hearing process and presentation, and naming conventions. So let's kick it off with your questions. Does anybody have questions they want to ask that they know of already from previously?
Hey, Missy, this is Rafe. How are you?
Good, Rafe. How about you?
Good. One's a quick question regarding mission-specific goals versus the Vistas report that we seem to be living and dying by again. In that contrast, right, or in that kind of juxtaposition of mission specific or mission contract goals versus what Vista's reporting, like what's the PEC's attitude towards one or the other? Like, are they weighing one against the other? Are they not acknowledging what we went through 5 years ago to establish some criteria, or is Vista's kind of the new way of grading?
They're always going to be hyper focused on Vistas. They always want to have all of you in the top tier of schools. That being said, what the mission goal helps the school with is when you're like, well, you know, we know we're on the pathway to excellence. We're not there yet, but the mission goal is what is showing, provides that extra kick of value, like why you're so critically important for your community. You know, frankly, have any of your schools, have any of you received any kind of notification saying that you were in danger of not being renewed? Right, so you're all going to be renewed between us, right? I mean, because that's in the contract. They have to have told you the last 4 years that you're not going to be renewed. They're going to make it varying degrees of painfulness for you in your renewal hearing. You know, I can't predict that. Some schools that were up last year, I'm like, okay, they're gonna have a hard time, and they breezed through. And other ones are like, this is gonna be easy. And it's just like, what's happening? So, Mary.
Well, just to echo a little bit on what Rafe is indicating, I just checked our scores on Vistas and they've been taken down. I think the attempt is to try to make them accurate. And this is from last year. So, I guess Rafe and maybe the rest of you don't have a whole lot of faith that our scores are going to be available in June, those of us that are renewing, and that is part of the renewal contract are those scores. So, I'm sure you guys are aware of that. It's just, if Vistas is going to be a focus for us, if you could echo that as well, then it needs to be accurate. I'm just saying.
Well said, Mary.
That's just crazy talk, Mary. Kaz.
It would be nice.
Hi, Missy. Also, I think to Ray's point, and something that you said is that what's excellence for our school community and our students and our community in general isn't always necessarily reflected in vistas. So
Right, and it varies per student population, right? I mean, so Cesar Chavez Community School just was renewed. And, it's been painful trying, like, the commissioners just, they want those kids to be doing what the kids at Ames are doing. And it's like it's a different population. You have to understand, it's a different population. So, and Rafe, you've been excellent over the years of educating the commissioners. And I mean, that is one of the things that you need to be doing through this application and renewal hearing process, is educating the commissioners on the work that you are doing, and that you've been doing, that you're, going to continue doing. One of the things that I had a training on Saturday, board training on Saturday, and I say it as often as I can, that, use your internal data. Use your data to explain, this is how, kids come to us. They're better off from being at our school because, they come to us at such a level, and they have this kind of growth. Yes, the statewide assessment tracks growth, but I think that you probably have internal data that really speaks to that growth that they have. And one of the things that will happen is once you turn in your applications well, depending on September or October, depending when you're going, you'll get a letter from the chair. Current chair is Patricia Gibson. And that will outline, that'll give you a hint as to what they're concerned about. And you can focus on answering those questions in your renewal hearing. So, again, your contract says that you're going to be told every year. You guys are still part of the cohorts of schools that are having to deal with the lack of data. And the mission goal is really, that's why, it's one of the reasons why there's a big change in the mission goal. Of course, some of you all are on the framework where the mission goal kind of hurts you unless you exceed it. But moving forward, it's got to be all of your students, and moving forward, you'll have the choice to not have just vistas, right? So, that's, one of the things that, well, sorry, it's Ruth, it's my neighbor. So I can't, I've tried everything. I don't know what to do. So it's even more important. I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, we'll get you all over the hump here. I know one of the things, like NMSA, the commissioners, I feel like they were kind of ready to pounce on them about their math scores. But when they were in front of the PC and they were saying, yeah, we were concerned about our math scores as well. So we sent our math teachers to a conference, and, we're seeing improvements. Because, you're going to have data from this year that we're not going to have in your report necessarily. I guess we will have it in your report, but anyway, you can highlight those things. So sorry about the noise, and I'll go. Any other questions before I head on? Okay, well, as always, you can email me anytime. You can interrupt anytime. It's not an interruption. We're here for you. So if you have a question now, or during the training, don't hesitate to ask. All right, so mission specific goals. So what that has been, is that your educational program effectively supports the mission implementation, your student success, overall well-being of the students in the community that you serve. So that's, what we're hoping your mission goal data shows. This was something that was negotiated, and you will negotiate again once you get renewed. It's going to be more difficult because you're being asked to do this for 100% of your students at your school. You have to really think, is that something you want to do in one goal or two goals? I have been recommending to everybody that they do one goal if they can. And so what you're doing is thinking about a goal. A lot of schools, particularly schools that have K through 12, have decided to do like a social emotional learning skill test. But whatever your goal is, like Albuquerque Aviation is about aviation. And so they can have an overarching goal, kids experience success in aviation fields or whatever. And then, what's different is how you measure it by grade. So an overarching goal that's measured differently by grade, but I think I'm jumping ahead. So, when you're reporting out on your goal in the application, you aren't going to be giving us raw data unless you can mask it. Please be aware that if you mask things in Adobe, it can be unmasked. So one of the reasons for the renewal site visit is for the site visit team to verify what you've said in your application. And so if there's a lot of raw data that is difficult to mask or something, making sure that that's available to the site visit team. And you should be reporting out on the performance of for each year. So again, that's going to be 4 years of your contract term. Yeah, 4 years, because we're coming up to your 5th year. So if you've not met your mission or school specific goal each year of your contract term, you need to provide a narrative of your improvement actions. Yeah, Hannah?
So you just said, and I guess I didn't realize this, that we're reporting out on the last 4 years of data. Are the commissioners, do they understand that it was COVID and the data is weird and spotty and all over the place? And with our mission specific goals, we're an outdoor education school who wasn't able to do that.
Yeah.
And so we just don't have data for like 2020, 21 for our mission specific goals.
Right. And so I think what you could do there is address that in the narrative. And, if whatever you were doing to try to engage kids, but yes, everybody's had, not everybody, some schools were able to continue on with their mission better than others, but certainly being an outdoor education school and having that goal, they have an understanding. I think that, another way to kind of address that in your narrative would potentially be to talk about what you look forward to, in meeting, in not specifically laying out a goal, but, it certainly won't hurt to say that you're excited to be gauging this, your future goal on all of the students at the school. And, maybe you've learned something from the experience of the pandemic that, will enable you to have a goal in the future that's something that can be, that's kind of protected against a global pandemic.
You just accidentally.
Sorry,
muted.
that was my fault, Missy.
That's okay. Yeah, thanks. I saw
Trying
that.
to
I'm like,
admit somebody and accidentally clicked on.
why have I muted myself?
you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
So sorry.
So, I think that that's the best way to address it,
Okay.
is to really, you know, to just own up, like, we struggled with how we could, you know, we couldn't have kids do X, Y, Z, but maybe you were able to have, you know, maybe kids had, I don't know what they did. Maybe they had their own kind of activities, but it wasn't strictly speaking how you said you were going to measure your goal. And so I think just being able to speak to, through that pandemic time, how you all were working to try to ensure that your kids were experiencing what it is that's special about your school and you know, your educational program, your mission. So definitely want to make sure that your narrative talks about the efforts that you did try to make in meeting those goals. Definitely focusing on the adult actions. But if you had student leaders who were like, hey, let's do this, let's do that, you know, certainly feel free to talk about that as well. And again, you know, what can the site visit team see when they come on their renewal site visit, if anything?
Thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, so I wanted to give an example. So this is from Middle College High School. They have 2 mission-specific goals, measuring how well they're meeting their mission. It's interesting. So they really wanted to continue with both of these goals as well. But we kind of talked them out of, I think we talked them out of the second goal. It can be something that they do. So remember that anything that you have as a goal, if it doesn't work perfectly for the entire student population, but it's something that's deeply, truly meaningful to your school, you can still do it. It just doesn't necessarily have to be written into your contract. So, and you can, you know, do things that in a way that are going to enhance your next renewal application, even if it's not attached in your contract. As long as you have data supporting what it is. Or you might, you know, want to continue on with this goal you have currently for a limited number of people and then add a second goal that's going to cover the rest of the kids. But anyway, so they're preparing kids for transition to post-secondary environments. They track their college attainment rates during high school, as well as tracking college matriculation and retention rates. And that's one of the things that the commissioners always are like, you know, you can't guarantee that you can track all of your students. So, you know, tracking their, once they've left your school is an undue burden on the school. All right, so the first goal of the school is to set college credit attainment based on, of course, you know, your 40th, 120th days, 80 to 90% expected to earn, blah, blah, blah. So he kind of lists out all the things. And then he has that it's attached in Appendix 2. So this is just an example, and I won't read through the whole thing, but it's an example of a narrative. Now this school met their goal. I hadn't thought about giving you an example about a school that didn't meet their goal, but I'm not sure if there was somebody in this renewal cohort that didn't meet their goal or not. If that's something that you guys want to see an example of, put it in the chat and I'll find an example of a school that did not meet their goal, and I'll just email that out to you all, or we can talk about it in the next session. So it's a long, no, did I go backwards? No, then so then they go on to the second goal. And then this is how their appendix looked like to graphically represent their goal over the 4 years of the contract. So that was for mission goal 1, and that's how they expressed mission goal 2. And this is the kind of the way the commissioners like to see data. You can see they're using a 0 to 100 scale on both of these. That makes it easier for the commissioners. Remember, not all of them are educators. They don't understand jargon. If you need to use abbreviations or jargon, make sure that you spell it out when you first use it, and then, you know, put in parentheses what the acronym is or whatever you're going to refer to it as, and then you can refer to that throughout. So that's how you're reporting out the mission goal that you've had this contract term. I want you to start thinking about, because for some schools, it was really took a lot of thought and effort to figure out how to write a goal for their entire student population. Moving forward, if you assess fewer than 85% of your students, you will automatically get a does not meet. If the testing data is not provided to CSD by the timeline established, that will also be considered does not meet. And if the school changes assessments or the way in which the measure is calculated, it is considered a material change of your charter contract and requires prior PEC approval. So again, thinking about a general overall statement, I'm trying to think of, so like Raices has language acquisition. But you know, that's going to be different for a kindergartner than it is going to be for a 5th grader. And that's the difference in that you explain. And you don't have to work on this now. I just want to put the seed in your head so you could be thinking about it. So it's not such a shock to the system once you're renewed and I'm pestering you about getting ready for contract negotiations. So the way it reads in the new contract, you know, briefly describe what you're doing to meet your mission and how it's measured. You can have a second goal, and you will be able to earn and exceeds, meets, working to meet, does not meet again. You're looking to capture how students are better off because of attending your school. And even when you're writing this year's response for where your mission has, you know, what you've been doing with your mission, I would advise, you know, really thinking about and verbalizing in your narrative, you know, how students are better off. And it's not a, you know, they're better off than going to that school or this school. It's, you know, this is what we provide to them, and that engages them in their academics or in their attendance, you know, in improved behavior by coming to our school and experiencing our mission. So moving forward, we're going to use a uniform tracking tool for everybody. This is what it looks like. We customize it to grade levels for your school. So we have, you know, your name, your mission, the academic year, what your goal or goals are, what assessment you're using. So if it's a school-wide rubric, you know, fine. If it's an assessment, fine. How often are you going to assess? And then what's the definition of success? And what are the targets? This ultimately should be all you're talking about in contract negotiations in a year is what are the percentages here for these different targets? You know,
Hey,
sometimes a
Missy?
school, yeah.
Oh, so with regard to this, is it able to be calibrated per individual school and per individual thing that we're tracking? Is it,
Yes.
or is it? Okay, so like if it's off the wall kind of indicators, it would be able to capture it, and we can tailor it to our needs.
So I've got an example of what it looks like. So this is School of Dreams and their school mission. And then, so they're providing state-of-the-art education, emphasizing career and college readiness and community service through a STEAM instructional model for the Middle Rio Grande Valley. Their goal is that students enrolled for a full academic year will demonstrate through STEAM and CTE courses. They're using the state standards mastery score for the K-5 and SOTA course grades for grades 6 to 12, recorded each semester. And then you can see they've defined how it's going to be, how students will be successful. That they're K-5 will demonstrate growth by meeting the grade level standards in each course subject mastery score of 3 or higher. And the other students are going to get growth in those courses with a B or higher. And then what their special education students' expectations are. So, you know, there's a lot of ways for you to define that success, how the school's going to meet the goal. And then, you know, this was what then was negotiated. Like the school might have said 90 to 100%, and then the commissioners were like, I think that's a little bit too, you know, once they understand the goal, then they might be like, let's put it to 85, or, you know, that's where most of the negotiation is. And then,
Missy, is it expected that we will use their template for providing these data?
for moving forward, yes, for your next contract term, not for this contract term,
Oh, okay.
for next contract term. And so you can see here, like, you know, there's each grade level is put in here just for informational purposes. What the CSD is going to be looking at and the school is going to be reporting out on are all students. And so there is room for modifying this to meet your needs, but we want there to be a standard template for the reporting of it.
Yeah, it sounds like
And
we'd
Misty,
be smart to stick to it.
Well, we'll see, you know, there's going to be 2 years of cohorts before you for using this template. And so, you know, they'll be working on any of the bugs, hopefully.
And Missy will be required to fill this out per every separate goal.
Yes, if you have 2 goals, you'll have two trackers, 2 tools. But
Okay.
this is, again, this is not for this report. This is for your next contract term. I just wanted to share it with you. However you report what you've done this contract term, that's on you. You do not have to use this for this application. Okay. Warren, do you still have a question?
No, that was it.
Okay. All right, so like I said before, we want you to use consistent graphic representations of your data if, you know, as much as possible. They'll certainly know if you're trying to make your data look better by jiggery pokery with the scales. So, with the responses that you're giving in your application, think about and how will we show this to the site visit team so that they can verify it. So again, you know, some of that stuff can be attached as appendices. But if it's complicated to try to redact information, you know, you can make a statement that the data is available for the CSD to review at the site visit. So for example, like when it comes to Part D and the signatures that you're going to be collecting, you know, what you're sending in with your application is the affidavit. It has the head administrator's signature on it. It has the notary's signature on it, but you're not sending us all of the signatures of the families and the teachers. That's what the site visit team will look at the site visit. So again, you know, make sure your X and Y axes are clearly labeled. X being the year, Y being the achievement. You want to include longitudinal data from your current contract term that will allow the commissioners to see and understand the trends in your data. Make it easy to interpret. And again, if you didn't meet the goal, address the strategies you employ to improve it. And that's what I was going to say earlier when I lost my train of thought. One of the things that I say in nearly every training is that your efforts around improving your school are not confined to 5-year charter terms, right? They are over the entire life of the school. And so, you know, you might have started something right after we got out of lockdown, thinking it would improve stuff. And what you're showing is that it hasn't quite gotten you the results that you were wanting. And so now you're implementing something new, and you won't have data on that until your next contract term. So that's a scenario. You know, so don't be afraid to talk about the efforts that you've made that maybe haven't bore the fruit that you were hoping it did. You want to be able to list those things. You want to be able to say, this is what we've been focused on every single year. We're trying to get to better outcomes. And we know we're not there yet because we've collected this data. And so, you know, we want to make sure that we're allocating our resources correctly. That type of information, you know. So again, you know, what have you started maybe during the last term, and maybe this term, you know, you've decided not to continue with it because it wasn't getting you the results. Don't leave that out of your narrative. It's important. It speaks to the fact that you've been working at trying to make the improvement. Does that make sense? All right, hearing that it doesn't not make sense. So also really consider that, you know, the PEC is going to look at the PED collected information, right? So vistas. You may very well have other data, and it seems to me that, you know, even if I think at the statewide level, even the growth data is probably somewhat flattened by statistics. And so, you know, if you get students in at your school who are biologically a 9th grader, but academically a 7th grader, and, you know, coming to your program, by the time they've entered their 10th grade year, maybe now they're at a 9th grade level. So they're still not proficient, but they've grown a lot, right? So you might have interim data that speaks to that more precisely than the statewide data. Another thing that I saw happen with this most recent cohort in December was there was a lot of discussion at some schools about student populations that have fewer than 10 kids, because that data is masked and the commissioners can't see it. And they don't like that. So I also think that if you have populations, subgroups that are fewer than 10 students, and they're doing really well, you know, I would highlight that, like, you know, this student population's data is masked, but they're, you know, it's tricky because you can't say, like, you could say if they were mostly proficient or all proficient, you could say that, but you can't say, even if you said like 50% of them are proficient, that's probably too iffy of a thing to say. So you might not want to put anything necessarily in writing in your application, but I think that being able to speak to as in a general as possible terms, or if you do address in your narrative the efforts that the school is making, something to consider. But it does rankle them. You can't see that data. So, all right, some Part C examples, reporting your finances over the contract term. So you have a table that needs to be filled out for 4 years. You need to put in the year, so you can see this example, put in the fiscal year 20, fiscal year 21, fiscal year 22, fiscal year 23 are on the next slides. And they break it out. I would love it if all schools would have their business managers just do this every year moving forward. And then you won't have to have them generate it at the end of the term. I think it's an excellent report to give to your board members, to be able to show, you know, how the school's doing over time financially. You know, as a group, to really focus in on what you're spending in the different areas. So this is what that looks like in this example. So, you know, one thing that, like, if a board was getting this over time, a question that I could ask, even I could ask, would be, you know, function 2200, how did we go from spending 10.1% of our budget to less than 1% of our budget in 1 year? Did we have a really big push to have a library, or did we get a new assessment type of thing? So this type of report leads to questions. And so, you know, looking at that, you can ask yourself questions, you know, in preparing for it. And actually, I think that preparing this and having your reporting it out to your board and then having them ask you questions. Well, why did this? Why is it that way? How did we spend so much more? How did we spend so much less? That might help you for any questions asked by the commissioners. Some of the commissioners avoid finances like the plague, and others are hyper-focused on your finances. So, but your finances are the area where you're most vulnerable. Most schools close themselves because of financial issues nationally, most charter schools. So it's something that you guys should be focused on. This is the example, and then they show, again, for all 4 years. So I really do strongly recommend considering this as a yearly activity that you ask your business manager to do moving forward, so that you then have it and it doesn't have to be created every 4 years or 5 years. Any questions on that? Oh, something in the chat. For this year's renewal class, can you tell us which fiscal year is year 1? Yes, so it would be FY21. Good guess. So you'd be ending in FY24. So that's one way to do it. It's just like, what year is this year? This year FY24, 23, 22, 21. That's what you're reporting on. Okay, the application submission. So you do have to use the state approved application kit. It's on the website. If you need me to send it to you, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be creating folders for you all in Google Drive for you to upload your applications, your appendices. So I will need you to tell me who you want me to share those folders with. I'm not going to make them today or tomorrow. I'll be reaching out to you later, just so I make sure that I've got everybody on your team that you want to have access to the Google folder. So that's something just to keep in your back of your mind. So the due dates, the September 1 due date cohort is 21st Century, ACES, Albuquerque School of Excellence, Amy Beal, Los Montaños, Albuquerque Sign Language, South Valley Prep, and the master's program. So your application is due September 1. You will have your site visits in September. You will have your back and forth of, you know, the CSD recommendation and your, you know, whether you need to make corrections of our or whatever, your response to the recommendation. You'll get a letter in October from the chair. If there are any concerns that they're particularly focused on. And then you will have your renewal hearing in November, the week of, where is November? The week of the 12th of November. And then for the other schools, your October 1, you'll have your site visit in October, you'll have your back and forth with everything in November, and then you'll have your hearing in December, the week of December 9th. They will be in person here in Santa Fe in Mabry Hall. They will also have a Zoom component. So if you have a board member who can't come up in person, but can attend by Zoom, it is critical to have a board member present with you. A lot of schools bring their attorney, which is perfectly fine. And, you know, teachers, it's the schools that are able to bring students that really stand out, I guess I'd say. I know that's hard for some of the schools that are really far away. But you know, if you can have students and parents and some staff that can attend, and if they can't attend in person, if they can attend virtually, you know, last go around Deep had some students. They also had a video presentation that brought the commissioners to tears. They brought all of us to tears. It was so well done. It was so beautifully described how they weave their mission into their academics. It was stunning. I've been talking about it ever since. The New Mexico School for the Arts brought their kids, their choir, and they sang for the commissioners. They loved that. But you know, I remember the last time Aldo Leopold was up for renewal, they brought some of their students, and the commissioners were just pounding the school leader on why don't your demographics match the district where you're in? And the team was trying to do their best to articulate, but it was one of the students that they brought along who happened to be Hispanic, and she said, you know, my family moved to Silver City, and so they didn't have a long history of attending the traditional public school, although she said public school. And so, you know, I know that a lot of the kids who are Hispanic, their parents, their grandparents all went to the traditional public school in Silver, and that's what they want. There's nothing Aldo Leopold can do to get those kids to come to this school. And the commissioners were like, oh, okay. So, you know, sometimes even your students can be the ones that provide the response that's going to help the commissioners understand. So I think the only school here that hasn't been through this process is ACES Technical. I think the rest of you have. And so, you know, draw from your previous experiences. Some of the commissioners have changed. the renewal, the renewal hearings are all recorded and on the PEC's YouTube channel. They're tedious, but, you know, you might want to choose one or two to just kind of listen to just get a sense of the types of questions schools were being asked. So I think it's worth a look. So Ruth, I hope you understood. So those recommended attending the renewal hearing, your head administrator, at least one board member, parents and families, students, if you can get them, staff, if they're going to be helpful in responding. Like some schools have brought, you know, like their math teachers, if their math scores have been low and they wanted to have the teachers there to kind of explain or talk about. Warren? Warren, do you have a question?
How many people are there on the commissioner's side at the hearing?
10.
Ah,
There's 10 commissioners.
it's a big group. Okay.
It's a big group, yeah, by the time you guys are having your renewal hearings, some of the commissioners will be ending their term, but they take it pretty seriously, so I'm sure that there'll be 10 there. But I'll be there and I'll be a friendly face.
Missy, in this last cycle, how contentious were those meetings in general?
Good question.
I would say they were. Hold on a second. Okay, and I'm gonna start sharing again. Sorry about that. All right, and I've put, I think that's that link I put in the chat will take you to the YouTube channel. I don't think it'll just take you to my part of the channel, but there you go. So, all right. So, and Cheryl probably will have more to say about this renewal site visit part. So we will, you know, you need to tell us if you're September school, you'll need to tell us what days in September are just no-goes. Don't come. We have parent-teacher conferences. We have this, we have that, we have off. You know, we want to work with you to choose a day that works for both parties. Same with October. So we'll send out our site visit protocol and schedule for you prior to the visit. You know, just like your annual site visits, like I know Stephanie Becker had to reach out and say, I had to change, can I change my site visit? I've got something's come up. And so we rescheduled it. It's harder to do that within the renewal window. So just, you know, try to make sure you're giving us the dates that you're most confident work for us to come. We will interview students, staff, board members, and I forgot to put in here parents. Shoot. So parents as well. The team can review your petitions of support signatures. I can't guarantee that they'll remember to ask for those, but that's the opportunity that we have to look at to ensure your affidavit that you have the signatures is correct. And they'll also review any data that supports your application narratives. So do all of you remember, you know, that you're getting the signatures that you're getting should be, you know, the students and faculty who were at your school between the 80th and 120th day of this year. So there's signatures you should be getting now. The hearing process. So first, there's the Public Education Department's evaluation. That's the Charter School Division Director's report or statement. That's untimed. It typically doesn't take a long time. It's where Director Chavez will, also find time to highlight a school's achievements. Then what's new in just a second, Hannah, what's new is the tribal consultation time. So there's an opportunity for tribal government, but also, and I don't know if this is an Alan Brower as the chair thing, and it's going to be different as a Commissioner Gibson as a chair. But in the renewal hearings last December, every single one, there was an opportunity for tribal governments to speak, but also affected parents and families. So if you do have a Native population and you do have parents and families, might be a time for an additional time for them to be making public comment. So Hannah, what's your question? Oh, YouTube, okay.
It was just, you said just a moment ago about the signatures, that it was students and staff who are currently here. I thought it was also parents.
Yeah, families. So families, sorry.
No problem.
It can be, so if you do have a student who is the student that doesn't have parents or they're emancipated, they can sign for themselves. But yes, it's the families. So, if you've got a parent who's got 6 kids at the school, they would just be signing once. So you need to have some type of, like, this counts for 6 of our kids and this counts for 1 of our kids, and so that you get your percentages correct. All right, so I'll figure out how to get a YouTube link in the chat. How do I do that? Is this a link? Go live, update videos, create posts, content. If I go to, let me get a link. Analyze renewal trainings. Yeah, let's see if that'll give me a link. So I'm gonna get you guys a link just to Dream Danae's and.
Hey,
hope that
Missy,
that-
this is Veronica.
Hey,
If on your YouTube, if there's a share button, go share, and an option will come up to copy the link, and then copy and paste it into the chat or wherever you need to paste it.
okay. Well, and Jennifer Martinez says this one seems to work, so. I'm trying to paste. I copied it. Come on. Get a shareable link. Paste, there we go. So that'll get you into at least one of them. Mary?
So question on number 2, if we have, fully functioning equity council, which is, was put in place to address Martinez Yazzie, would that be an appropriate place to put that under number 2 and have maybe the equity council report out? Because they represent all of our underrepresented groups.
Right. No, they are not going to fit in the tribal consultation unless your equity council is mostly tribal. It's really
not.
okay. So if you don't have tribal consultation, then, and they don't have to, but just if you have Native students and you have a relationship with their community, their tribe, their nation, and they are willing to either write a letter in support of the school or show up in support of the school, that has a lot of weight. And so, for most of the schools I don't think anybody showed up to provide commentary. So you can, so if you have those populations, you can be reaching out and saying, you know, hey, come November, come December, you know, would somebody be willing to speak out in support of our school during the renewal hearing? There was no time limit for that was stated in the last go around. And again, I don't know how Commissioner Gibson's going to approach this. I mean, I know she as well very much values the input of tribal governments. Then there will be public comment time that is 10 minutes. Your attorneys don't need to sign up. So consider that your head administrator, your attorney, your board chair, and anybody else that you want to have sitting at the desk with you, they don't need to sign up for public comment. Now, if you don't have people who can come, you know, and provide public comment either virtually or in person, and you want to have people that are at your presenter desk sign up for public comment, do that. Again, having people there who want to speak up and say how much they value your school is very beneficial. They will be probably given 2 minutes if you have a bunch of people. So it is the type of thing that can go beyond the 10 minutes, but they really do try to keep it at the 10 minutes. So I do the timing. I always wait until people spell their names and stuff like that. So then that's done. And then there's the 30 minutes for the school's comments. So you can have a presentation like you have in the past, or ACES, you guys weren't here in the past. So a lot of schools in the past have made a video. I think I used to be like a 15-minute video. So you could do whatever you wanted. You could do a shorter video. You could take up the entire 30 minutes with a video if you wanted to. I don't know that I'd recommend that. I think that there's been a lot of impactful videos. Really, the most impactful videos are the videos that are showing off your school. They're describing how your mission and your academics help each other and help your kids. Again, like Deeps was incredibly terrific. My memory, I recall, they were talking about doing I think it was an overnight. They were baking something in a pit oven, and a great video of kids doing the work, and the kids were talking, but they were able to talk about how that incorporates math and science and culture in what they're doing. And so, you know, years and years ago, I remember one school had a video that, first of all, I don't think any adult reviewed, because I think it was student led, which was great. But when they would fade between different people, marijuana leaves would fan in, and that was hilarious. But what it looked like was a great ad for an after school program. And you don't want that. You want something that's really going to highlight how you integrate all of it into better academic outcomes. But what's really critical is, you know, kids aren't going to get better academic outcomes if they're not coming to the school, right? So like, how is it that we get kids to get engaged and things like that? You don't have to do a video. You can just talk the entire 30 minutes. School of Dreams used their time to, and I think the entire 30 minutes as a presentation where they went over the concern letter that the commissioners gave them. They went over each point in the concerns and addressed each one of those. And the commissioners loved that. So, you know, it's up to you. Again, practice it. And then the PEC questions, which is untimed, they could go on forever. So, again, your 30 minutes, you can use that time as you would like. If you do get a letter of concern from the PEC chair, just bullet point it and try to tick off each of those bullets. Again, having kids present, you can, if you are gonna have any kind of, they're gonna sing a song or do something, you would be part of your 30 minutes. Practice your timings. So again, kids can be very unpredictable. And so depending on, you know, the age of your kids, sometimes it's better to capture everything they're saying in a video, because then you can edit it and trim it down. Other kids do a great job in person. That's for you guys to determine. And you can have both. You can have kids in person and you can have a video. So again, you're choosing who sits at the desk with you, the presenter's desk with you. They get to respond to questions. So that's why you don't necessarily want to use their time up in the public comment, because they'll have the opportunity to respond to questions and you know, tuck things in their comments. So please ask anybody who's going to be speaking out for your school, particularly parents and students, to use traditional public schools versus charter public schools. A lot of times parents will come up and say, we didn't want to send our kid to public school. And it just, it doesn't sit right with the commissioners. You want to have people who are willing to stand up for your awesome school. They need to sign up. This is something that I haven't really trained about in the past, but I'm like, I need to start training people on this. They'll be signing up. I have that on the next slide. So they need to sign up, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. They will be asked to spell their name for the court reporter. And then I start the timer after they finish spelling their name. So I try to eliminate, you know, pauses and things like that to give them as much time to say what they want to say as possible. So if you have somebody signing up, at the start of each hearing, there's a Zoom screen that gives descriptions on how they sign up for chat or for public comment. They need to go into the chat, the Zoom chat, and they need to, you know, put in their name. I'm Missy Brown. I would like to speak in favor of Albuquerque Sign Language Academy. We'll have a period of time before each school. So it makes it complicated if things run long. But I do try to get a screen up that shows that people can sign up for public comment. If they're there in person, and you guys who are sitting at the desk, you need to sign in on the paper sheet that's outside of Mabry Hall. So even if you're not signing in, so the sign-in sheet outside of Mabry Hall indicates, you know, do you want to make public comment? And that's a tick box. All right. We do want to, and I can talk about this in our third meeting as well, but we do want you to name your appendices in a particular way. So, you know, if you're using an appendices, so like if you're a school of excellence, you probably don't need to provide any academic data, right? If you're meeting or exceeding the academic goal. But if you did want to provide academic data, it would be like A1 academic data, ABHS, for Amy Beal High School, or you could put Amy Beal, so just like indicate it that way, but it's helpful if we have the appendices name in the beginnings, we know that that's what we're looking for. And if you're a district applicant who's going to be trying to charter with the state, there are additional appendices that we need. Well, we need those appendices because you don't have the other data for us, so. All right, that's what I have for you guys today. Oh, but I see that I've got 3 chats. So what do we have questions? All right, who made cake?
Deep in that video you were talking about.
Oh, yes, they made a cake, not bread. Thank you. And it was, I mean, literally everybody was in tears. So how many people can sit at that little desk? I've seen like upwards of 6, 7 people. We just add chairs. And I'm hoping to have more microphones soon, but definitely by the time your renewal hearings happen. But, we try to accommodate as many people as possible. And sometimes people will have, 4 or 5 people at that desk and then people in the row right behind them. And, those, somebody's got a question and you're like, oh, well, so-and-so can answer that. And then they can come up and sit at the dais and answer that. So the commissioners are trying to give you as much opportunity to be successful as possible. I know it doesn't always seem that way, but that's the sense that I get, is that they're really moving towards that. Rafe doesn't believe me, and that's understandable. I understand.
I agree with that. And even the commissioners who come off as, more critical are open to learning, so.
Yeah. It certainly does not hurt to invite commissioners to do things at your school, particularly speak at your graduations, or attend events. Consider having them do that this year, before the year is up, just because when they come to your school, if they've been to your school, I do think that they're more engaged in supporting you. So. Any other, let me stop the recording.